welcome everybody. Let's do this. So here for this Wednesday, or for whenever you're seeing this lesson in this class, you should be able to do this question no problem. So I'm not going to go over this one. For this question, it may look a little bit weird, but the idea is, you get the radical by itself, subtract 4, and then I'll just show you how it should look like if I have 3 square root 6 minus x equals negative 12. What is the 3 doing to the square root of 6 minus x? It's multiplying. There's a multiplication happening. So to get rid of this 3 so that the radical is by itself, you're going to divide both sides by 3. And notice that dividing 3 only divides these two here. You're not going to do like 6 divided by 3 is 2 minus x or something. It's just this that gets canceled. And then you should have 6 minus x is equal to negative 4. I'm sorry, square root, right? And then you square both sides, la la la. You should be able to do this one. Here, for this question here, this is a level 2. This one's not too bad. You can do this one on your own. This is finally, let's get to level 3 type question. And here, notice that what's different about this question versus the others, this has a double radical. Okay, so the idea is strategy is you always want to get the radical by itself, but notice that no matter what you do, like let's say, let me rewrite the problem, right? Like let's say if I have square root x minus 2 is equal to square root x minus 8. No matter what you do, you're still gonna have 2 radicals, right? Like right now, like I can't just say, oh, let me add 2, and then let's say square root of x is equal to square root x minus 8 plus 2. Notice that if I square both sides, I mean, this is what we're going to do, but there's no like one move that gets rid of both radicals. So the idea or the strategy for this one will be strategy. Get rid of one radical at a time, at a time. Okay, we got this. This question will not be that bad. Here we're going to get rid of one radical at a time. So the idea is here, notice that if this radical is by itself, let's square both sides, right? Let's square both sides, because if I square this square root, notice that the right side of the equation, this will cancel out, right? So notice that you're equal to x minus 8. This, like the right side, easy peasy. But now the left side, we have to do a little bit of work, and it's not too bad. Here we need to do the square root of x minus 2, the whole thing squared. Now this I'm going to show step by step. So let's just write it out. That if I had square root of x minus 2 squared, notice that this has to equal square root of x minus 2 times square root of x minus 2. Okay? So now how do you actually FOIL this out? What I want to show is, I'm going to show the same problem, right? Square root of x minus 2 times square root of x, square root of x minus 2. And you see, this you're not comfortable with. We haven't seen this before. Let's show something where you are comfortable with. Like let's say x plus 3 times x plus 3, right? This you should feel comfortable with, right? This is easy money. So notice the way we do FOIL with this will be the same way we do FOIL with this, but it'll just look a little bit different. So let's just take a look at this, right? So here, this is square root of x minus 2 times square root of x minus 2. Now draw the lines of how you would solve this, right? What would be the first move? You do x times x, right? So that is x squared, right? Here, we're doing square root of x times square root of x, right? So now notice we need to write this out. What is square root of x times square root of x? Okay, we'll leave that for now. Then what do we need to do? We need to do square root of x times minus 2. So we need to do square root of x times that negative 2, right? And notice here, it's the same idea, right? You do x times 3, right? That's what you're comfortable with. That should be 3x. And then what do you do next? You do 3 times the x, right? So this should be 3x. And then what do you do here, right? You do, what should the line be for here? This should be negative 2, right, times square root x, okay? And then the final move over here would be what? 3 times 3, which is 9. And here, what's our final move here? This is negative 2 times negative 2. So here, you could do that. This is negative 2 times negative 2. And notice that this is 4. So notice how the final part, this should be 4, right? But the idea is, how do we figure out what this is? Now this, I have to teach you a little bit something, and it's not too bad. Here, the idea is, if you want to multiply radicals, right? Like let's say if I said, for example, what's the square root of 2 times the square root of 3? Oops, sorry. If I said what's the square root of 2 times square root of 3, this is just square root of 6. You're just multiplying what's on the inside. If I said what's square root of 5 times square root of 4, right? 5 times 4, this is square root 20. So now here, if I say what's square root of x times, or actually, you know what, even before that, if I said what's square root of 5 times square root of 5, right? This is square root of 25. But notice, what is the square root of 25? Right? Like what number times itself gives me 25? Notice it's just 5. Right? So notice that something happens here, right? Pick any number. Let's say square root of 4 times square root of 4. That's square root of 16. But that's just equal to what? Square root of 16 is just 4. Pick any number you want. Square root of 7 times square root of 7. Notice, what do you think it should just be over here at the very end? It should just be 7, because square root 7 times square root 7 is just square root 49, but the square root of 49 is 7. So here, if I have square root x times square root x, that is equal to square root of x squared. But notice that you saw here when you are, let's just pause for a second, when you square the square root, this cancels. Now, when you take the square root of a square, this cancels like that. You're just left with x, right? So this pattern holds, okay? If you feel like this is a little shaky, just see me, raise your hand, and I'll be able to explain it again. So here, that idea, when I have square root x times square root x, this is just equal to x, right? So this part is just x. What about square root x times negative 2, right? That should just be negative 2 radical x, right? You're just doing negative 2 times square root x, and you can't simplify this anymore. You're just multiplying these two out. So this is negative 2 radical x. And same idea here, negative 2 times square root x is just negative 2 radical x. So that's here. And then negative 2 times negative 2, this one we know is positive 4. So notice that this is what we should have over here. Now, let's go back to what we're comfortable with, right? Like we're comfortable with this. X times x, x squared. X times 3, 3x. 3 times x, 3x. 3 times 3, 9. What would be the next thing you do once you get to this position? You can combine these terms, right? So you get x squared plus 6x plus 9. Now here, for this part, you can combine this term and this term. Because here, what do they have in common here is an x. What do they have in common here? It's a square root x. So the idea is, if I wanted to add, let's move this over here so we have some space. If I have negative 2 radical x minus 2 radical x, take a guess of what you think this will be. It'll just be negative 4 radical x. You're just combining negative 2 minus 2, right? Like if I had, for example, 5 square root 7 plus 3 square root 7, right? This is just 8 square root 7. Oh, sorry, 8 square root 7. Right? You're just combining the coefficients of the radical. And that will happen for anything. Let's say if I had, for example, 5 square root x minus 8 square root x. Just 5 minus 8, negative 3 square root x. Right? Okay. Now here, this should be x minus 4 radical x plus 4. Great. So notice that we just accomplished multiplying this, and hopefully this explanation was nice and easy for you. But now we gotta go back to the problem, right? Like, we just did this part, right? We did all the work just for this. Now I have x minus 4 radical x plus 4 equals x minus 8. Now here, let's go back to the strategy. Remember, in the beginning of the problem, we had 2 radicals, right? What was the strategy? Let's just get rid of one radical at a time. And notice that when we squared both sides, we got rid of this radical. Now, once we did all this work over here, how many radicals do you have left in the problem? You just have one. You just have one radical. So the idea is, once you have one radical, the idea should be get the radical by itself, right? By itself. Get this radical by itself, because if I can get this radical by itself, what can I do to get rid of this radical? We can square both sides, okay? So the idea is, try and work your algebra, do whatever you're allowed to do to both sides of a linear equation to get this radical x by itself, okay? Take your time. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Everybody pause the video and see what you can do. How can you manipulate this equation such that you're only left with just this radical by itself? What would you do? Okay. Pause the video. Now here, if you want to see the solution, right? Notice that I want to get this radical by itself, right? So notice what's in the way on this side of the equation. What's in the way? The 4 and this x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 4, and what I could also do is I could minus x, right? So notice that this x minus x is 0, and now what am I left with? Negative 4 square root x. 4 minus 4 is 0 equals x minus x is 0. Negative 8 minus 4 is negative 12. Then, just like I showed you in the previous problem over here, like for like a very quick second, don't you remember, like here, what was the 3 doing to that square root 6 minus x? It's multiplying, right? Or that same idea we've been doing for all these problems, right? I mean, for this part here, like what's the negative 2 doing to the square root x? It's multiplying. So how would this negative 4 is multiplying to that square root x, so how would you get rid of it? What would be the winning move? You're going to divide both sides by negative 4. Then this cancels, right? Or it's equal to 1. Now I have square root x is equal to 3. Congratulations, you have the radical by itself. Pause the video. What is the final move you need to do to get x by itself? What is the winning move? Square both sides, because this cancels. Now I'm left with x is equal to 3 squared, x is equal to 9. Fantastic. Okay, but we did all this work. What's the final thing we need to do? You need to check it. So let's see. The original problem is square root x minus 2 is equal to square root of x minus 8, and we're going to check for x equals 9. Okay? Pause the video and try and do it by yourself. It's really not too bad. Right. If x is 9, then this is square root of 9 minus 2 equals square root 9 minus 8. Square root of 9 is 3 minus 2 is equal to square root of 9 minus 1 is, 9 minus 8 is 1. Right? I didn't need to drag that. 3 minus 2 is 1. What is the square root of 1? It's 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. Right? So 1 equals 1, check. X equals 9 is a solution. Happy. All right, not too bad, not too bad. I think the thing that we just have to get used to this. And hopefully when you rewind back, right, like when we look at the strategy, get one of the radicals by itself, and then when you have to FOIL this part here, you just have to take your time, and hopefully you understood that square root x times square root x is x. And then here, you're just combining the terms as if it was just like this. All right, everybody. I'll see you in class.